Dickinson is perhaps a poet without limit. One of, if not the greatest poet of all time. But one thing that still never ceases to amaze me is how many questions Emily Dickinson can raise with just, for example, as we have here, 8 lines of poetry. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford. We are here for another poetry discussion, which will take place in 2 separate playlists here on the channel. Number 1, of course, being the Emily Dickinson playlist, but number 2 being the poetry discussion playlist. The poem in question today, New Feet Within My Garden Go. Not one of the more well-known Emily Dickinson poems. It reads as such: New feet within my garden go. New fingers stir the sod. A troubadour upon the elm betrays the solitude. New children play upon the green. New weary sleep below. And still the pensive spring returns. And still the punctual snow. Now, I'm going to read this one more time, but I want you to pay special attention to the stanza break, where that stanza break happens, and what it might mean. New feet within my garden go. New fingers stir the sod. A troubadour upon the elm betrays the solitude. New children play upon the green. New weary sleep below. And still the pensive spring returns. And still the punctual snow. I think it would be very easy to give a reading of this poem that what we're talking about is a metaphorical garden, right? So a metaphorical garden meaning life. These new feet, these new fingers, we get to that second stanza and we come to the realization those fingers and feet belong to children. I'm not sure that's the case. New feet within my garden go. There's someone new walking in my world. New fingers stir the sod. This could be a spicy metaphor. This could definitely be something, should we say, Shakespearean? A troubadour upon the elm. Speaking of Shakespeare, a poet upon the elm. Is this a bird? Maybe. Is it that troubadour to whom these fingers and these feet belong? That troubadour betrays the solitude of our speaker within her garden. We will use her for this poetry reading. It does not necessarily have to be a her, but I think that that's where we're going with this. New feet within my garden go, new fingers stir the sod, a troubadour upon the elm betrays the solitude. Space, a lapse of time. Maybe that time equals, say, for example, 9 months of time. And then, after that troubadour with fingers in the sod, new children play upon the green, new weary sleep below. And still the pensive spring returns, and still the punctual snow. Now, I think that there is actual more evidence in this second stanza for the fact that we have in this space here a lapse of time. New children play upon the green, the garden. New weary sleep below. What is this calling to? What is this about? New weary sleep below. Is this the dead? Is this people have died in the time that happened between here and here? Is that what we're talking about? Because we keep getting time lapse references, and still the pensive spring returns. Spring, what you would imagine here, boom, goes with children. Also goes with new feet, new fingers. This is spring. New weary sleep below. This would seem to me to be a calling out towards death, and still the punctual snow. Snow, of course, is a reference to winter, but Emily Dickinson was from the Northeast, so maybe it was as early as fall, maybe it was late summer, who's to say? But still, death and winter are two things that go hand in hand. So we are to take those two things for what that means. New feet within my garden go, new fingers in the sod, stir the sod, new children, and then we get new weary. That is a break from the previous newness to this poem. Now, I tend to think that that's sort of where we're going with this poem. I don't know that it necessarily has to be that close to a literal translation, that close to a translation of intimacy. This could be individuals treading upon the sacred grounds of Emily Dickinson's retreats, right? But what does it mean for this to be the speaker's garden? New feet within my garden go. There is a possession, a possessive nature from our speaker there. In that second stanza, there is no possessive. New children play upon the green. It is as if that possession has been relinquished. Much in the way that people say having children, so a lot of people say having children tells them what life means. They didn't really have a life until they had children. They didn't know what living was until they had children. They didn't know what the meaning of life could be until they had someone to whom their life was dedicated. Not like a partner, but truly dedicated. People who say that having children completely transforms their sense of self. Because even, I think that you spend so much time in life trying to figure out who you are, and then there's something more important than you, and all of a sudden who you are doesn't really matter insofar as who it is that you are, is not providing for that child. So the mere fact that in that second stanza we have someone relinquishing control over something that they had stated in that first stanza was their garden, I think is more evidence that this is what we're talking about, a probable fantasy with Emily Dickinson, right, of finding that someone and rearing children. Emily Dickinson did not do that. It could be that Emily Dickinson is setting this up, is writing this for or about someone else. Or it could be that that is not the metaphor at all, that the core metaphor to this poem is something else entirely, and I have just given a terrible reading. But that's the beauty of poetry, and perhaps especially the beauty of Emily Dickinson. That's all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button in order to stick around for more literature in the future. There's poetry on the channel every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.